Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Inside UNC Charlotte. I'm Will City. For universities across the country, keeping campus safe and secure is a first and critical step in supporting a thriving learning environment. For large urban institutions like UNC Charlotte, that requires well-organized networks of staff, systems, and technology committed to campus safety. Today, we'll take a closer look at those networks and how the university is evolving to address issues of note in the Charlotte region. Joining me in studio is Jeff Baker, Chief of Police at UNC Charlotte. Also with us is Dean of Students Christine Reed Davis. And welcome as well to Tracey Allsbrook, President of the Student Government Association. Thank you all so much for being here. So yesterday, we asked the university community for feedback to guide our discussion today, and we're really thankful from the extremely thoughtful and positive response that we received. And we will use what we heard from that extended university community to guide our discussion today. So Chief Baker, to begin, could you give us an overview of the UNC Charlotte police force, its qualification and how it operates here on campus?
Absolutely. We're a 24/7 police department. You know, we have officers on duty, you know, day and night. We have a criminal investigations section that is very active as well. And most importantly, we are an internationally accredited police department through CALIA. And you know, that ensures that best practices and our policies are all followed with what we see throughout the nation for police departments.
Do you have a number on total officers we have on campus and how many people they're policing?
Right now we have 54 officers, and you know, we disperse those officers through different squads. We have 4 different squads that they work, and you know, our officers are highly trained, and they are North Carolina certified police officers.
We've seen several reports of criminal incidents around and on campus in recent weeks. To establish some context for our discussion, could you give us some statistics on how crime at the university this year compares to previous years?
Certainly. So, although we've had some alarming incidents recently, and they're of great concern to us, violent crime is really rare on campus. And you know, we don't see it that often, but we do occasionally. And you know, when I've said it before, that when you're from a city the size of Charlotte, you know, you're going to see unfortunate crime occur at times. It's how you're prepared to handle that crime. And in the situations that we've seen on campus, our officers responded. We were able to effect arrests fairly quickly, and some of that was in collaboration with CMPD as well. So it is a team effort. I want to add that we do have an extended jurisdiction within the city from CMPD, so we can extend off of campus to assist CMPD if it's necessary.
Dean Davis, before we get into how the university addresses specific safety issues and resources available to students, we had a number of questions submitted asking about how the university makes decisions about when and how much information to release about a particular incident. Could you explain the guidance behind those decisions and how those decisions are made?
Sure. As a public institution, we are required to follow our federal laws with regard to student privacy rights. So it's something called FERPA, Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. So whenever we're made aware of a certain student or individual on our campus who has expressed some ideas about harming another person, we first need to look and see, are they one of our students? And do those federal laws fall into place that protects their identity and any information that we can share with the greater public about their status here at the university, in addition to their identity, photographs, anything like that is protected. And so we are very limited in the things that we can share when those situations come across our desk. And we go to great lengths to try to figure out what are the pieces that are available for sharing for a general public from a campus safety perspective.
And certainly we'll get into that more later and hear about the investigative process that the police department goes through and how that helps color, again, when and how much information can be released. But for now, I want to ask you, Tracey, as a student, what are your central concerns in regards to safety, and what are you hearing from your classmates?
I think my classmates and I both all share like the same sentiments. There's two main concerns that I've been hearing and kind of trying to address, and that's number one, as the city grows, how does UNC Charlotte approach incidents that may happen on or around campus? So what practices are we using? What detail are we sending out to students as just the surrounding area grows? And number two is just how we're being notified about it. I think that students are appreciative of the Niner notices that have been sent out this year because in years past that transparency or that level of transparency has been questioned. So this year I can say that students are engaged and they are feeling very aware of what's going on around campus. However, just making sure that that's the case as the school continues to grow and as any incident occurs here.
Sure. And Tracey, you mentioned the issue of how campus safety relates to the growth of Charlotte and the issues that an urban environment brings with it in terms of crime. We had several people asking about the idea of non-students coming to campus and causing safety issues. So, Chief Baker, my first question to you is, what is the policy on non-students coming to campus?
Well, that's a great question because I hear that as well. And, you know, it's important to remember that this is a public campus. All UNC system universities are public campuses, and that means they are open to the public. And I understand why that may be troubling to some, but at the same time, we have to find the fine balance between, you know, never harassing a person that wants to come to see our campus, that just wants to come here to maybe walk around and just look at the campus. You know, we don't do that. And on the other hand, I will say that we have had incidents where non-students, non-affiliated folks are pretty much exclusive to that incident. And what we like to do is encourage students to be very careful of who they interact with and who they invite to campus or bring here, because we have seen some situations where it's resulted in criminal conduct.
How does University Police monitor and respond to people that we know may be here to cause problems?
Well, one thing that I would encourage students, if they haven't already, is to download the LiveSafe app. And that is a direct link to our emergency dispatch center, so that if they needed to speak with a dispatcher or a police officer, they can send us a message, they can text a message, they can call us. It offers numerous options that can help us with monitoring. And at the same time, we have 24/7 police officers. You know, we're out. We have community policing officers that are working in the academic quads specifically. We also have foot beats, foot patrols, bike patrols. We even have ATVs so that we can patrol the greenway areas and places like that. So we're out there, and of course we have your traditional, you know, response vehicles that we also patrol the campus with. So, you know, we're out there, and nothing is more important to us than the safety and security of our students, faculty, and staff.
Dean Davis, do you have anything to add on resources available to students as it relates to public safety?
Absolutely. I would echo Chief Baker's sentiment about downloading the LiveSafe app. I think that's a great resource that we have for our students. In addition, if students want to also report things to the Dean of Students office, they can do that through an online reporting function called incidentreport.uncc.edu. If they are living in the residence halls, they can contact their resident advisors or their residence education coordinators. I also advise students to take personal precautions, walk in groups, both during the daytime and the nighttime. Be aware of their surroundings. Many of our students walk looking down at their phones or with their headphones, you know, on or in, and that sort of takes away the awareness of their surroundings. So I think there are both technological resources and personal actions that our students can take to help be more safe on campus.
So with light rail arriving on campus finally this Friday, we've seen a great deal of excitement from the campus community about the opening of light rail. 1,200 people have registered already to attend the grand opening ceremony at the campus station, where they can hear Tracey speak on Friday. But we've also heard from people who've expressed concerns about the fact that light rail makes the campus a lot more accessible to people from the uptown area who may be non-students. Chief Baker, first of all, do we have any data on how the addition of large public transportation systems like this affects safety on a campus?
You know, that's another great question, because what we've seen is some of the universities, there's only a few that have light rail access to their campuses, and they have very little crime. You know, they really do. And it's important to note that even on our light rail, we have a variety of security measures. So you start out, the light rail itself contracts with G4S Solutions. They have armed company police on the train. They also have a state-of-the-art security system as far as cameras go, and multiple cameras on every train that produce perfect images of individuals on the train. So if someone were on there, it is also a very, you know, it's a small area, so you can, you know, zoom right in on people. You can see them, and you can see their actions, and you can monitor them if necessary. And then when you stop at any one of the many stations along the rail, there'll be law enforcement there to interact with if necessary. You know, so as far as security goes on the train, I think that it is very secure, and even CATS itself, they have seen very few incidents, and the train has been, you know, just super in Charlotte, and occasionally there is crime though. You know, I have to kind of go back to that each time, because we are the 16th largest city in America, and when you're that size, you do occasionally see crime. I wish I could stop it all. And so do all chiefs of police in this region, but we try very hard to.
Does University Police have a particular plan in place to respond to the influx of people that'll be arriving on campus via light rail?
Absolutely. So one thing we wanted to do is that the chancellor was quick to recognize that we probably needed more officers. So we want to make certain that for the hours that the train runs, that we have a police officer assigned to our platform on campus, so that we have a continuous on-site uniformed police officer there at the station. And on top of that, we have direct feed cameras from the station to our emergency dispatch center, so we can also monitor with cameras at the same time as we have the eyes and we have an officer. And it's the station in and of itself is going to be a commonplace for our community policing officers, so that we can interact with our community even better as they ride the train, and we can provide them with loads of information.
So we heard a lot from the university community about moving around campus after hours and concerns about safety during that time. So I want to circle back a bit to that. Chief Baker, first, are police escorts available to people who may be concerned about their safety if they're working late at the library, for instance, and how might somebody go about requesting one of those?
Well, what they can do is call our emergency dispatch number at 2200, 704-687-2200 if they have that type of a concern. And I'll also revert back to the LiveSafe app, because the LiveSafe app has on it a program that you can go to, and you can type in where you're going, and you can notify your friends, and you can notify the dispatch as well, so that when you're walking through campus, you have that ability so that people will know where you are. And that has a GPS function. So if something were to happen and you hit the emergency button on your phone, we're going to know where you are, and we can respond right to you.
It's like carrying a blue light in your pocket.
It is a blue light phone in your pocket. Yes, it is.
Dean Davis, we heard from people about concerns about particular areas of campus, parking lots or dormitories that aren't centrally located. How can students submit concerns about that, where the chief might redirect some of his resources, or university facilities could look at adding additional lights? How might students get that message through?
Well, I think what Tracey and the Student Government Association does is a fantastic program that is a campus safety walk, that groups of students and faculty and staff members can walk around at dusk or after the sun goes down to look at those lighting situations. And every year, a campus safety walk report is created and submitted to the chancellor for consideration for funding of certain safety precautions in certain areas. Outside of the Student Government Association Safety Walk, I think that Chief Baker has welcomed any feedback, any information about areas on campus where students do not feel safe. He works very cooperatively with our facilities management department to make some determinations about what additional resources, lighting, extra foot patrols, those kinds of things can be made available to make our community in general feel more safe.
Tracey, you've talked in the past about the challenges you faced coming from a small town to Charlotte's metropolitan environment. As the university takes another major step in truly integrating with the city proper, could you reflect on your experiences during your time here and perhaps provide any advice you may have to current students?
Yes. Even though I feel kind of older now, from freshman year, I definitely remember being, my parents and I being concerned about safety here. Small town, you know everyone who's around you, who's down the street, and sometimes they know before you do. So coming here, it was more so just wanting to feel assured and wanting to feel safe walking through campus. So I took some of those precautions that Dean Davis was talking about, walking in pairs. Even me, if there was studying, we have study rooms in our dormitory, so if I didn't want to go to the library, I knew there was somewhere else I could go study just in case if I wanted that extra security and safety. So to students, I would say just making sure you know about your surrounding, know about the resources here that are on campus, and not being afraid to ask about them. I think that the second part that comes into that is taking initiative on ourselves to go out and find these resources that are here and going out and to see who we can talk to if we do have these concerns.
Before we move on, Tracey mentioned dorms, and one of the recent incidents did involve an individual from off campus gaining access to a dorm. I'd like to review the security that's attached to the dormitories here at UNC Charlotte, and perhaps some best practices that students can take to make sure that people who shouldn't be in the dorms aren't. So that's for either of you.
All of our residence halls are equipped with card swipe locks. So in order to gain entry, a student who lives in that particular residence hall has to swipe their card. So in the instances that we have seen where crime has happened within a residence hall, those have been guests of students, current residential students, or where our students have felt courteous to hold the door open for somebody behind them. So while no one, to my knowledge, and Chief Baker can certainly address that, has broken into the residence halls, they have all come through either as a guest or a friend of a current student who belongs in that building, or they've been let in by a courteous student in front of them who holds the door for them. So I think to the point that Tracey made, being aware of your surroundings, being sure that our students are not letting strangers into buildings, that they are recognizing the people that they are with, and that they're bringing into the residence halls.
Sure. We would like students that have lived safe to report if you see strangers, or you see something that looks unusual, or you see somebody that doesn't fit. You know what I mean? Please let us know so that we can look into it. They also have our housing and residential life has security guards as well that work the midnight shift. So I mean, there's another layer of security at our res halls that exists. And I do want to go back real quick to our safety walk, because something I'm really proud of is that under Tracey's leadership this year, in the 8 years that I've been at the university, we had the most robust, well-attended safety walk that we have ever had. And I just want to thank Tracey, because she did an outstanding job with that. And we had just so many students. It was enlightening, it was great, and I appreciate that, Tracy.
And thank you for working with us too. That's the thing. The connections are there, and the transparency is there as long as we inquire and stay informed about it.
Chief, before we move on, I want to discuss the issue of communications in campus safety, which is obviously a critical issue. That's why we're all here today. But there's been a change recently to the suite of options that UNC Charlotte uses to communicate with the university community about safety issues or issues where they may need to take action. We have the Niner Alert and the newer Niner Notice. Could you explain the differences in those and why we have two different alert types? And we'll put this information up on screen as well so that the viewers at home can look that over themselves.
Certainly. So the Niner Alert is when there's a specific threat or an imminent threat or an ongoing threat to the campus community. That could also be a weather threat, or it could be a criminal threat. But when we send the Niner Alert, that's what exists, is, you know, we have that level of threat to our community. And then we, of course, have Niner Notice. And that was created so that we could have a platform to alert our community of incidents that would be of interest. Maybe criminal activity off campus or directly off campus, or some type of a weather or some type of an event that would occur that would be of interest, and at the same time, it's not a direct threat.
Right. So, changing gears a little bit, given the national context of acts of violence in places where large amounts of people congregate, an issue that was already important to campus safety representatives has moved even more to the forefront. Chief, how does the university respond when it finds out that a student has expressed ideas or intends to harm someone else on campus?
So one thing we would do, we follow almost a blueprint from the Secret Service. And what happens on situations where you have that type of a threat, what we do is, you know, we start a threat assessment. And one of the first things you want to do is know where that person is. And, you know, are they seeking help through a hospital, things of that nature. The next thing you want to do is find out where do they reside so that we could search that residence to see, do they have a stockpile of weapons, do they have ammunition, do they have a manifesto, things of that nature. Next, of course, you want to speak with coworkers, friends, roommates, things of that nature to find out, are you alarmed? Is there anything that has, you know, upset you about the conduct of this particular person? And in our situation, of course, we would reach out to faculty. And we would want to speak to faculty and talk to faculty to see, is there anything in the classroom you saw? Is there anything you noticed? Is anything like that? And at the same time, depending upon where you were, you may reach out to the State Bureau of Investigation so that if you were somewhere else, if that person was somewhere else in the state, let's say, the State Bureau of Investigation has statewide jurisdiction. So they can go and they can speak with family members, they could search their residences, they could inquire about weapons, things of that nature. So it's a wide spectrum, and you know, on these types of situations. But I will go back to that, you know, this is something that the Secret Service really perfected as far as a threat assessment tool in engaging what level of threat may be at hand.
So it's those combination of factors that will determine, number one, the action of police, but that also has a lot to do with how much information can be released. Is that right, Christy?
That's correct. So on our campus, we have something called the Campus Behavioral Intervention Team. I'm the chair of that, and Chief is a member of that team. A part of that team is a threat assessment group that Chief and I lead when this information comes to our knowledge. So we go through, just as Chief mentioned, some of those threat assessment protocols. In addition, we look at our internal software system, our incident reporting system, to see if reports of that particular person, especially if they're a student, have popped in other areas of the campus community, whether or not there is behavior that we can track or that we can pin down. But all of that is protected information by our federal law. And so while we are able to look into that from a campus behavioral intervention team and make some of those assessments, there's very limited information that we can share with the general public or even other members of the campus community regarding that student's behavior and any action that is going to be taken on that student, whether that is a conduct action that may put them in the conduct process, or an emergency protective withdrawal action that temporarily removes them from campus pending this threat assessment and this determination about whether or not they're a continued threat to campus.
So given that reality about occasional limitations on our ability to distribute information about these threats, Chief, what do we do when someone has made these sort of troubling comments, but they're not under arrest? They may be in treatment, but we're not able to release that information. So what does police do to make sure that someone who's, for example, trespassed from campus does not come back and is kept off university property?
Well, the one thing you want to do, and we've learned, is that you want to have follow-up with that person. You know, you have to go upon their release from treatment, let's say, you want to go and you want to make sure that, you know where they are. You know if they're complying with treatment. You know that maybe the local police departments or sheriff's departments are aware of the situation that we faced with this person. So the after action, that follow-up is critical on situations like this. And certainly, we want to go and follow up and remind them, look, you are trespassed from our university. We want to make sure you understand that and do as much as we can to keep that person from campus. And again, I rely on, law enforcement agencies. Sometimes they're out of our jurisdiction where maybe a person lives. And what we do is rely on their information and what they can do. And if we can't, we'll go ourselves if we have to, or we will reach out to the State Bureau of Investigation.
But as far as the campus-specific response, your officers are obviously made aware of this individual and to keep an eye out. And are there any other measures beyond just making officers aware to ensure that this person is kept off campus?
Well, we're going to do that. So one thing we would do is make sure that regionally all law enforcement is aware of who that individual is. We would make certain that, multiple sources in law enforcement that could come in, could interact with him, could see him, would know, or that person would know who it is. So it's real important as far as communication goes, and that's something else that, we do in these types of situations.
I would also add, from a campus behavioral intervention team and a crisis communication advisory group, we have conversations about what specific offices on campus might that student pop into, and provide those offices with information about the student that might include a photo, because under the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, that is educational need to know. We can make some determinations about when and with whom we share specific information. And so we will do an assessment about where we anticipate that person might land if they were to come on campus, had they been trespassed, and have instructions provided to those particular offices or people, including faculty members, about what to do if that person is on campus at a point that they are currently trespassed. So we try to be protective of that information within the bounds of the law, but also recognize that there's an educational need to know for certain pieces of our institution and our community to have that information to respond appropriately and let us know if that person is on campus when they're not supposed to be.
Discussions of this type, especially today, are inextricably linked to mental health. So Dean Davis, I'd be interested to know what resources are available to people on campus who may themselves be struggling with mental or psychological issues, or may suspect that a friend or classmate is having some issues.
Absolutely, and I think that I want to always strike this balance of being compassionate about struggles that our students or faculty or staff might be having with mental health or with certain ideations, with the protection that we need to have for our campus community. So there's always that balance. For our students specifically, there are resources at the Counseling Center, our Counseling and Psychological Services Center, in addition to our Student Health Center, employs full-time psychiatrists in addition to psychologists. There are social workers. We also have case managers and staff members specifically within the Dean of Students office and our student assistance and support services that students reach out to and can talk through any kind of challenges that they are facing and get connected to resources both here on campus and within the community. And I think a point about Light Rail is that is going to allow our students to be connected potentially with more community resources to help support their mental health than we have had previously without that light rail opportunity connecting us even further into the city of Charlotte.
Chief Baker, what can you tell us, and I know you may be limited in the amount that you can discuss this, but about University Police's protocols when it comes to the unlikely event that there was an active shooter on campus?
Well, you know, there's several points to this. So one thing that I want to bring up immediately is that we have safety videos on the PPS website that I encourage all our community to review. They're very well done, and I can't say it enough. Please go to our website and at least watch those videos. They're very good and extremely informative. So if we were to respond, though, to an active shooter situation, you know, we have trained. We've trained through Alice. We train yearly in campus buildings. We have cross-trained 11 officers in special weapons and tactics so that they can also respond, and they're dispersed through the different squads, through the 4 squads. We have SWAT officers on all those squads. We have a variety of ways that we can respond to that type of a situation. And like you said, you know, it's all about the buildup, it's all about the training, and that's something that we do as a community as well, and we take it very seriously. We also provide Alice training to our community members if they would like to receive that. We've really stepped up that program recently and have seen a lot of success. Many departments are now requesting it, and our officers have been real busy, to be honest with you.
Chief, a few submitters asked questions about students, faculty, and staff carrying guns on campus. Could you briefly overview the policy on that and where that policy comes from?
Yes, so it's prohibited by North Carolina General Statute to carry firearms on any of the UNC campuses. And there is a provision that you can have a weapon, a pistol, in your vehicle on a campus, but you must be a CCW holder, and that pistol must be locked in its own secured box in the vehicle. Not in the glove box, but in that box. And that is the only provision allowed on a UNC campus for having a firearm unless you are a sworn police officer.
Thank you for clarifying that. Tracey, Dean Davis mentioned the really impressive grassroots efforts that the student government has made related to campus safety. What opportunities are there for students to get involved and to help contribute to keeping UNC Charlotte safe?
Yes, so as mentioned before, our Campus Safety Walk is in the fall, so any student is open to come to that. We send pubs out, we send emails to student leaders, just anyone that we feel like might be interested in coming. Also, we have open office hours as far as me, my student body vice president, any other Senate representative there. And then we have open Senate meetings every Thursday where we have these representatives from different departments here on campus come and speak about the opportunities that they're giving to students to get involved. And even this Thursday, Chief Baker will be there to answer any questions that any students may have about campus safety and any other resources that we have here.
Can I
Sure,
add that within the residence halls, there's a Resident and Students Association also that is a particular form of government within the different residence halls on campus. And I know that the RSA works closely with the Student Government Association. So if students have concerns about things that are happening in the halls, they can connect with their RSA representative who has a liaison to the Student Government Association as well.
Before we wrap up, Chief Baker, any final thoughts?
I also wanted to mention that we have over 300 blue light phones on campus, and those are emergency phones, and if you use one of those, that call will go directly to our dispatch if someone saw the need. And on our light rail station, we also have blue light phones. So, you know, that is covered as far as that goes. I did want to mention that.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us for this extended edition of Inside UNC Charlotte. And we went a little longer today because the extended UNC Charlotte community submitted so many great questions. We hope we answered most of those today. If you have additional questions, you can of course follow up with the Dean of Students Office or with Campus Police. And we will try to put up a lot of the resources we've mentioned today on the screen for you now.